days.
Yeah, so we got moved over to our permanent spot, and now we can get this stuff tore apart, and we know we're going to be down for a little while. So the issue is this intermediate shaft, as you can see, doesn't look that good. And we got some pretty extensive work going on down here. So the biggest issue is that we'll be covering over these shaft alleys, and instead of these pieces being removable like they are now, they're going to be fiberglass down, which will make this fish hold sealed, which will mean we can fill it full of water. If these aren't sealed, the water will just simply go into the engine room through the hole that the shaft goes through, and that would be a bad thing. So seeing that we're gonna put these shaft alley covers down permanently, and also we need to put a bulkhead right here, this intermediate shaft needs to come out now and be replaced now. It's hard to say how much life is left in this. It could be a day, it could be 5 years, who knows. Doesn't look good. And right now it's easy to get pulled out, so it's time for it to go.
Yep. Yeah, it's not something we have to or want to worry about replacing however many years down the line.
Yeah, or even worse, failing in a bad moment.
Yeah.
Like during a storm or during a good fishing period. Either one of them is bad. So we knew that this would need to be replaced when we bought the vessel, so this is no big surprise to us. We felt confident coming home with it the way it was. This is actually kind of deceiving, but there's still, a fair amount of material right here. It's just a lot of scale, a lot of rust. This coupling would never spin loose just because the amount of rust is just literally fusing this metal together. It'd probably fail right here or by one of the bearings. At any rate, that's not going to happen to us. So the only way we're going to get this out is just to cut this. So these are split couplings. There's 2 flanges right here that meet each other. There's 6 bolts. These are 3/4 inch bolts, and then it has a set of bolts that come right through here. And if you look closely, you can see the split in these couplings. And that's why they're called split couplings. There's a cut line right here. So when you slide this over the shaft and then you put these 2 bolts through there and tighten them down, it pinches the shaft. And when they fit these couplings to your new shaft, these bolts right here actually go through the shaft very slightly right here. There's a scallop in the shaft, just a little cup right there that this bolt goes through. That helps to prevent the coupling from spinning also. And then on top of that, there's also a key on here too. I believe it's a 5/8 inch key in these, but you can see the key right here. So it's keyed on top of that. So, it's kind of like a 3-point system. A keyway, scallop here, and then a pinch on the shaft. And it provides an adequate connection point. These have been in use forever and there's no issues with them. So that being said, there's absolutely no way we're ever going to get these bolts out of here and separate these 2. Even if we got these bolts out, most likely these are so fused together with rust that it'd be almost impossible to break them. So what we're going to do is just come in here and we're going to cut that shaft right there. And then we're going to go back there a little ways and cut it again. And inside the engine room, we're going to disconnect the same split coupling that mates the shaft to the transmission, or the reduction gear, as they're called in nautical terminology. And we'll disconnect that flange in there, and then we can slide that portion of the shaft off of the, 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 and we can pull that last piece out. And then once that's done, we can take the flange off of there. We'll bring it back here, we'll mount it on here, and we'll get a really accurate measurement from the face of the flange going back to the reduction gear flange. And that's the dimension we're going to send to the folks down at Olympic Propeller that are going to turn a new shaft for us. And so they'll take 2 couplings, they'll mount them on a shaft, they'll trim it to length, they'll scallop the shaft where the bolts go through, and before they're all finished, they'll tighten things up, and then they'll put it in the lathe and they'll spin it. And what they'll do is they'll check for run out on the face of the flange, and if there's any run out, they'll turn it on their lathe, they'll just face it, and then that way we'll have a nice true running shaft. And then when we get back here, we'll just slide it right through here. We're going to bring it right through that hole, right through here. At least that's our plan.
That's the current plan.
There's enough clearance, yeah. Yeah, we did. I don't know that it would have gone in here without the second fish hole opening, to be honest with you. Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been tight. So the alternative to that would be to get pulled out of the water, drop the rudder, remove the propeller, and pull the tail shaft. And that's what this is. It's a tail shaft. It's just a shorter section going from the propeller back to this intermediate coupling. And of course that would involve a lot more time and a lot more effort and quite a bit added cost.
Yeah, getting pulled out, that would have been
several $1,000s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, right now I'm just kind of wiping up this extra grease off of this bearing. Before we start to cut anything, start to move anything, we're going to wrap a piece of tape on here, and we're going to measure off of this bearing flange right here, because we know we're not going to disturb this right now. We're going to measure off of that, and we're going to measure back here, and we're going to put a mark on that piece of tape, and we're going to write that dimension down, because at some point we're going to have to slide the shaft back a little tiny bit in order to drop in the new flange and align it, and then we'll bring it back together. We want to make sure that that is going to line up again and that it's in the same spot when we're done. Or if we have to shift this around and in the course of cutting that, then we can make sure that we measure that and get that back to the exact same spot it is before we take our measurement for the shaft that we need to have made for us. So that's kind of an important thing.
All right. Well, I see you got your shaft marked there.
Yeah.
Do that real quick.
Yeah, so I just took a piece of masking tape and put it on the shaft and measured off of this bearing right here. We won't be touching these right away, so we'll just go ahead and use that for a reference point right now, I guess. I wonder if we will have to touch those though. That's a good question. Well, no, it's not going to matter. We won't have to mess with those right away. We can take it off after, and it'll be fine. Because once we have the shaft made, it's a done deal.
Mm-hmm.
So these are split bearings, which means that it's a 2-piece bearing. These come in different configurations with different types of bearing material, but basically you can take these 2 top bolts off and lift this assembly off, and then you can replace the inner bearing material. These ones look like they have UHMW in them, but people may also be familiar with like Babbitt bearings, which is a lead tin alloy. They also make split bearings with bronze, and then maybe nylon, I don't know, but these look like they're UHMW in there. So we'll be splitting these apart before we're all finished down here, and probably just get new bearing surfaces for the inside, because we're here as well.
Get some paint on those most likely.
Yep.
We'll sandblast it up and pretty it up and all that jazz.
Yep. So in the meantime, this face will be fine because we don't intend to move the shaft other than slide it back a little bit if we need to when we're working on getting this loose. But now we have a good reference to come back to. That's the important thing. And then we just put a piece of clear tape around that masking tape just to protect it. If it gets wet or something, it won't get washed off or destroyed. So we want to make sure that we have a good reference mark.
So there's another bearing under this plate here, so.
Yep, so we won't drop this or worry about bending anything further forward. It'll support it fine for now. And then once we get this cut, we can remove this plate. We'll probably split that bearing right there and take the top half off, and then we'll just go in the engine room and work on disconnecting the coupler from the flange and the shaft too, because it'll have to be disconnected. The coupler forward has to be disconnected so the shaft can slide out through that hole. So that one is in much better shape than this, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem.
It's not crusty at all, right? Just
No.
surface rust.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's got grease
I think
all
it
over
actually-
it from the Zerks and everything in the engine room.
Plenty of grease in a while. I think it actually has some paint on it still too, so yeah, it's in good
Nice.
shape. Hopefully it doesn't give us too much trouble. Tricky part's gonna be getting in here. I should probably get this removed, but I think I can just cut it from this direction here. That's gonna be the tricky part.
We can spin it, right?
We can spin it. This thing turned down really low. I thought it went a little faster. That's weird.
How is it?
Good question.
Still sharp.
Yeah, it's cutting, but
Take a little bit. It's a lot of metal.
probably get this out of the way. Just about. And there we go. That's that, folks.
I don't think we're going anywhere now.
Definitely not. Step one, cut the shaft in half. Okay. So now we can go in the engine room and we can, I don't know what the best way to go about that is. Probably break these bolts loose on the coupler and see if we can't, twist it, because in there we can wedge a bar into the bolts and against a stringer right there, and then over here we can put a pipe wrench on it on this side, or in there. Might be easier over here though, and we can just try and twist it and work it loose.
Work it back and forth out of the coupling.
Oh, actually that won't work because it's keyed. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, no.
So when those bolts go in, is it deforming that metal to pinch it, or just like bending
No, it shouldn't, like,
So
yeah, I mean, not deforming it enough to leave it bent, I don't think.
yeah.
Yeah, because there's an awful lot there.
Mm-hmm. So maybe it'll
But-
just be enough to loosen those, possibly.
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to see.
Yep.
We might have to put like a plate and just something to push,
Mm-hmm.
like a porta power or something. That'd be a good tool to get as a porta power.
It would. Yeah.
I might
Lots
have
of
to invest in one of
applications.
those. This is gonna be hard. I don't know exactly how we're gonna tackle this. Let's see. Wonder if it's easier to spin. Relatively easier. Look at that.
It already
just moved.
spread out.
Yep. Just because my cut was crooked. So I'm thinking that on this, that we're gonna have to come in here, and this is gonna be kind of the spooky part, is cut it right here on these bolts. Well, I don't know if I see much of an easy way about this at all.
Yeah. Well, if you get through
probably
those,
gonna be really tough.
yeah, it is. Because you get
So-
through
so
the bolts
this-
and you still have to get through here, huh? Through the main part of the flange.
Yeah, I mean, we can
Put it
try cutting these and driving them out. So this might be the type of thing where some cutting wheels are gonna be, and just gonna have to cut through there, and it's gonna be nasty, as all can be.
It says Sawzall, but
It's worth a try.
might be worth it. Like you say, it's not stainless, so
This is cast iron here, ductile iron, I believe.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of, it's a little bit softer. And one of the nice things about it is kind of self-lubricating, so when you cut it, it doesn't come off like, it's not as hard as steel. So it just comes off in tiny little chips.
Mhm.
I would say cover up all these bearings and stuff. Normally we would do that, except we're gonna come in here and we're gonna disassemble all this and clean them anyways. But if a guy wasn't gonna take these off, you'd really wanna cover these up to make sure you don't get any of these filings and junk like that in there. Something that might cause premature wear later. But like I say, this is all gonna come off, and we're gonna clean all these. We're gonna get rid of these old copper lines and replace them. But yeah, probably come in here and just take these completely out and clean up these beds and inspect them and everything.
Mhm.
This is the only chance we're gonna have to do this.
Yeah.
Like
Now's the
probably
time.
for who knows how long. My other thought is we could just slice it right here, because that shaft should probably just come, it shouldn't come all the way out. It won't come out to the end here. Usually they just kind of bring it in even with the inside of this face. Yeah, not even really close.
Can't even get it in there, huh?
Yeah. Okay, so we're probably done with you, friend. Oh, I broke your specimen. Sorry, buddy.
Coming off in chunks, huh?
Fragments. There you go. Look at that
Oh man.
bolt head. Cool.
pieces, huh? It's crazy.
These were double nutted, I think, huh?
Yep. You think we'd actually be able to drive those out?
I wonder if we could just face it and drill them. And it depends on what grade steel they use. I think it's like grade 5 or something.
If it's hardened, then no go, huh?
So, guess we'll just see here, huh?
Yeah, see if it chews into that.
Yeah, let's see what it does to it. For lack of a better idea right now. It's all just part of the exploring right now.
Yep. Making some actual depth there.
It is, but I don't know if it's going to be the right thing to do. And I don't think that that's rust anymore.
It's kind of satisfying.
I know. It's weird, huh? Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Oh man. Oh yeah, that's like a 3/16 right there. Man. Souvenir.
Love it. Well, I wonder if I just take the grinder and just like split it right on a bolt and just try that. A guy could just do it to all of them and then grab a couple of cold chisels and just drive it in there and see if it'll split it.
Mm-hmm.
We can saw through the face here and we don't have to worry about the shaft right here. That won't be an issue.
Alright, so try grinder.
Yeah,
I get the respirator and
yeah.
What do you gotta do to get that?
Well, we're gonna have to get this flange off of here. We're gonna have to get the flange off in the engine room, take that flange, put it on here, and then measure.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah. So, right now I'm just trying a couple of things. Like I'm probably gonna have to cut through this, because there's probably not gonna be any other way to do it. Probably just gonna have to, you know, ear through there. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Invariably, we're gonna have to split this, I think, to get in here closer and do more work.
yeah.
We might have to like carve part of this off or something. I don't know what's gonna happen here, honestly.
Let's get in there with a grinder
I mean,
for now, huh?
I want to come in here and just cut through this, but you know, there is a thing that if you can't rotate the bolt to cut the other side of it, and it's going to be scalloped in the shaft, so like you really run the risk of damaging the shaft by doing that.
Mhm.
I know that that's probably not going to be a good thing to do. Let's cut into that. Yeah,
Seems to be doing the trick.
I can see the bolt right there.
Oh yeah.
See it?
Yep. Sure can.
A big grinder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we might have to split it down this keyway because I'm comfortable with that. Cutting it down that keyway
Yeah.
because there's nothing to damage. You can cut right into the key and just cut right across there that way. And we could do that with the big grinder.
Yeah.
And then the other side, I don't know, you know, we can play that one by ear, but
Well, like you said, if you cut that down to the keyway and then just weaken the other side even 2/3 or 3/4 of the cut.
that might be enough, because then it can split apart that way.
Yeah.
And these don't matter. I think if it gets close, you could drive a wedge in there and, you know, stress it that way, and you can squeeze it back together and drive a wedge in that way.
Yeah.
I think it'll go that way maybe. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe the best way is just the problem is then that's going to hit. I might have to get a bigger grinder.
Yeah, probably. I think it's time for one anyway.
Kind of did our first couple of little tests here. I mean, it goes without saying really, and we knew this when we even started, that most likely it's not going to matter if you cut the heads off this. You're never going to drive those out of there. You'll probably put some heat on there and probably blow them out of there with a torch, but we get right back to the same thing, that these faces are still going to need to be spread apart. They're actually cutting pretty easy. That's a pretty deep cut in there. Probably cut them with the grinder, and even just get a chisel in there and break them apart. But at the end of the day, that's probably not going to do like the whole job for us. I think what we're probably looking at doing, and this might be the easiest thing for us, is that we're just going to knock these heads off real quick with the grinder. And then tomorrow we're going to pick up a bigger one. We don't have a 9-inch grinder anyways. We just have our little 4.5 inch, and we've been actually needing to get a bigger grinder anyways, so we'll probably just go pick out one up and a couple of thin cutting blades, and then just cut straight down on the face right here. You almost get away with it with this one, but what's going to happen is the arbor is going to end up hitting this face. And what we want to do is just cut down right flush with this as close as we can. And we can cut through this part of the coupling right here. The shaft does come through, and usually they bring it just about up to the face of this, but if you cut a little bit of that shaft right here, it's not going to hurt anything. I'm saying that just being completely clueless and ignorant, and that may or may not be the case, but I'm pretty sure with about 99.5% certainty that it's not going to make any difference on that shaft. There's actually a little bit of a recess here anyways. It's called the pilot bore, and that's to align a female and a male coupling together, because that's what you get for the register to make sure that the two couplings are concentric and they don't run out of balance with each other. Just the bolt pattern isn't enough to ensure that those shafts are perfectly aligned, so they have a pilot bore. And generally speaking, they'll stop that shaft right on the inside of the pilot bore. The important part and the mechanical connection of these two is number one, the keyway. Number two, these two bolts right here that are actually scalloped. There's a little, almost like you take a round file, they'll mill it and they'll put a cut into the shaft on each side, and this bolt goes through there, and that's when those bolts go through there, that helps prevent it from twisting also. And then the third one is just these being tightened down on the split coupling, which pinches the coupling around the shaft. So that's the three ways that they maintain that really strong mechanical connection. We can come in here and we can take a big grinder and we can cut right on top of that keyway. This keyway is garbage anyways. We'll be putting a new one in there, a new key, not a new keyway, but a new key. So we can cut right on top of that key, and we'll just cut straight across there, and we'll break that coupling right there. And then we can come back and we'll turn it 180 degrees, and we'll do the same thing, and we'll just cut right across here, and we'll just be real careful that when, you know, we start to get close to that shaft, that we, you know, take our time and we just get close in there. And I think once we get fairly close, we should be able to just take a cold chisel and go into the crack over here and break it between the two and just physically break that coupling, because ductile iron is more prone to fracturing and breaking, and it probably won't take a whole lot to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so ductile is like cast machinery, right? Like
Yeah.
same thing.
Yep,
You see
cast
that all the
iron.
time.
Ductile iron is
You
cast
break off
iron.
a leg or whatever on heavy machinery and
Yep.
braise it up or whatever.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm excited to get this replaced. Once this is out of here, then we can come in here and we'll get this shaft alley like completely cleaned out. Most of this stuff is going away. We're gonna replace all these old copper grease lines right here. Put something probably a little more modern and less corrosive in there, less prone to corrosion.
Mm-hmm. Probably hydraulic lines.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
They make some stuff that's like 4 grease guns. That it's a little bit expensive, but it's kind of a one-shot deal too.
Yep.
So we'll do that. We'll get this all mucked out. We'll get this cleaned out real good. Get the water out of here. This water always collects in here because you can see back here that our packing is dripping, and that's what we want. Just like on the fishtail, for just regular packing glands for shafts, you know, you want a little bit of water dripping through there for lubrication, keep it cool. So this is normal for that to happen. It's normal for this water to build up in here, and then we just pump it out. It's clean water normally. There's, you know, no oil or anything in there. So we'll get this water out of here. We'll get all of this vacuumed out real good. Inspect this concrete, go through. If there's any loose stuff, we'll break it apart and get rid of it. And then while we're in there, we can, you know, do things like after we get this measured and everything in our final measurement, we can come in here and we'll break these bearings apart. We'll break them apart. We'll inspect everything, get the measurements we need to replace this UHMW bearing inside. Probably just completely disconnect all of this from the bed, and we'll inspect everything down here. These sound pretty solid, but we'll give them a good look over and make sure that there's nothing in there that's gonna warrant replacement in a few years, because it's just not gonna be feasible to come back in here and cut all this stuff open.
Like Dad says, when we pull that apart, I mean, we'll probably be taking those nuts off, and if they spin at us, then we'll know that we need to service those pads.
Yeah, that's the time to go in there and bore them out, and we'll fill them full of some solid glass, or we'll do whatever we need to do to fix them. And then when we're done, we'll have this shaft alley will be all cleaned, muck it all out, get it painted, gel coated, whatever. Any kind of work that we need to do on the side, we'll take care of it, this fiberglass. Mm-hmm. And then we'll be ready to come back in with our new shaft alley covers at some point. the folks that are going to be turning the new shaft for us and fitting the couplings and everything said about 7 to 10 days lead time. So after we get the measurements to them, hopefully tomorrow, they'll get started on it Wednesday, and hopefully by sometime the week after they'll be finished. They can get it over to the barge or to the mats and container ship, and we'll get that on the way up here. And then that's another 7 to 10 days depending on how we ship it. So we're a couple of weeks out for a new shaft. By then we should have all the stuff cleaned out and ready to go. We have some other parts that we need to get ordered and get on the way. A new fuel line to replace this grossly oversized one. Suction line. We'll replace return lines at the same time. It's just a single one right now for the rear tanks, the suction line, so plan on putting 2 in there instead so we have a little more flexibility. Right now they're just teed into each other and could close one valve or the other. This is stuff that we're not concerned about. This is stuff that we knew about going into the purchase of this vessel. We knew that we'd be looking at replacing the shaft. Sooner or later, for us it's sooner because we have so much stuff that needs to be done on top of it that will make getting in here and doing this later hard.
Mm-hmm.
If we already covered up our shaft alleys, then we just will have access ports to come in here later, but we're talking about, you know, an access hole that's going to be this big. You know, and it's probably going to be centered over the bearing because that's the important part. So how do you come in here and you cut this coupling out later? It'd be almost impossible without cutting into your shaft alley
Yeah.
cover and removing it. And so that's stuff that we need to do now. So anyways, that's where we're at, guys. And
I guess we'll wrap up for tonight, pick up our tools,
yeah,
fire it back up tomorrow.
go get a new grinder in the morning and really get to business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to get that in half. I'm glad that we got moved, so
Yeah, that was,
we're in our permanent stall now, so this was kind of the hold up to getting this done, was that we wanted to get moved so we weren't towing ourselves over here with the fishtail and
Mm-hmm.
turning what should have been a 10-minute job into an hour job. And having to deal
Yeah,
with the weather and
a lot more
everything.
stressful.
Yeah, more stressful.
Nobody likes pushing around a boat that's twice your weight. Because this one's 40-ton, fishtail's 14.
12 net, yeah.
Yeah.
14 gross, so
So, actually,
3 times,
3 times your weight.
nearly.
That wouldn't have been any fun.
Yeah.
Glad to be here. So alright guys, we'll pick you back up in the morning once we get back down here and get fired up again.
Yeah, we'll make some more dust.
Yep.
Or rust. Rust dust?
Rust dust. Yeah.